the caribou tundra, in the wild barren land, on the fierce Arctic ice where the polar bears stand, where the trail of the Eskimo hunter is worn. This is the country where legends are born, where the northern lights blaze above a cold Arctic haze, and caribou come to an old shaman's drum. In saloons and in dance halls they talked of the gold. There were stories of fortune, stories of cold. The trail of the weary gold miner is worn. This is the country where legends are born, where they measured a man.
Alaska's high peaks, stunning beauty, uninhabited landscapes, and abundant wildlife have for decades drawn those who seek outdoor adventures or those who want to experience life in one of America's last frontiers. But as those who live here can attest, life is not always easy. The limited winter light, temperatures which can plunge to minus 60 degrees, extreme blizzard conditions, and goods and services that can be delivered only by air or by boat make living here not for the weak of character. One can only imagine the challenges of survival faced by the natives who chose to settle in Alaska thousands of years ago. Having to travel miles across open tundra through severe Arctic conditions in search of food, it was here that the sled dog was bred as a critical means of survival. As depicted in these drawings made by native Inupiats around the turn of the century, sled dogs have been an integral part of the native Alaskan life. Hunters had to cross miles of ice and snow in search of meat, and the sled dog was an indispensable means of transporting the food back to villages. Originally descendants of wolves, these canines were bred with an eye for a thick coat that could withstand extreme conditions and tough feet that could travel over long distances. The dogs also had to be gentle, as they were brought inside igloos to provide an additional source of heat for their human companions. Coexisting in such close quarters with their human families meant that, like the modern-day dog, the sled dogs also had to get along with babies and young children. Dog sleds were also vital to the eastern Alaskan Athabaskan Indians in traveling trap lines and delivering fur to the trading posts. Recognizing the importance of the dog in their survival, the Athabaskans developed elaborate dog blankets that were worn on important occasions, such as visiting other villages or arriving at a trading post.
He was hard and tough, but he'd had enough of the ocean and the whale. So he bid farewell to his shipmates all, and he hit the Klondike Trail.
The dependency on the sled dog continued with the arrival of the white man. Less than 100 years ago, the sled dog was still the most efficient way to move about the Arctic, providing vital goods and services necessary for the survival of the villages. Freight hauling dogs were used by trappers, gold rush miners, and the U.S. mail delivery, to name just a few of the crucial roles that sled dogs played in Alaska well into the first half of the 20th century. In 1925, one of the most isolated communities on Earth, Nome, Alaska, was faced with a widespread diphtheria epidemic that threatened to wipe out the entire village. Because of extreme cold temperatures and high winds, travel by the newer technology, the airplane, was considered too risky, and officials turned to the centuries-old method of travel by dog sled to save the inhabitants. In a literal race for life, Leonard Seppala led a group of 20 mushers and 150 sled dogs over the 650 miles across the Alaska interior. In a record-breaking 5.5 days, these brave men and their determined companions safely delivered the life-saving serum.
There's gold up in the stream, shining bright and one on my dream. He was hard and tough.
4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Jesse Royer is well represented by a lot of fans from Fairbanks now.
The state that stands alone, there's a dog race run from Anchorage Int'l Nome.
The Serum Drive to Nome is the origin of the tremendously popular 1,100-mile Iditarod race. Each spring, over 80 mushers with their teams of 16 dogs travel from Anchorage to Nome, crossing 2 mountain ranges, open tundra, traveling up the frozen Yukon River and across the Bering Sea. They typically run on as little as 3 hours of sleep per day and often face the same extreme blizzards, fierce winds, and plummeting temperatures endured by those who saved the inhabitants of Nome. More importantly, however, the founding of the Iditarod race in the 1970s was a vital step in the preservation of a critical element of the Alaskan heritage. Sled dogs as a breed were vanishing from villages, towns, and even the remotest areas of Alaska by the 1960s, having been replaced with the airplane and the snowmobile. Due to the vision and determination of an Alaskan homesteader, Joe Reddington Sr., the Alaskan sled dog is a flourishing breed today. However, the dogs used in the Iditarod are different than those that pulled sleds in the past. The dogs that hauled mail and supplies were bred for brute strength, like weightlifters. With the modern-day occupation of racing, speed becomes the dominating factor, and the sled dog now more resembles the marathon runner. Dogs today have a slight build and a narrow body type, allowing for ease of stride and efficiency of movement over long distances. The Alaskan Husky is not a show dog or registered breed. It is bred purely for performance, and the definition of a sled dog is very simple. It's the dog that pulls hard and runs fast and loves his job. Loving to do it in the end becomes the most important ingredient, genetically speaking. On a 16-dog team, the lead dog is 100 feet in front of the musher, far beyond the reach of a hand or leash when a musher calls out a directional command or asks the dogs to pull the sled over a mountain range. From a motivational perspective, they have to want to do this themselves. 5,000 years of breeding has honed this instinctive desire to pull and allows the musher, as the team's coach, to focus on developing the athlete's potential and talent.
From Big Lake, Ramey Smith now starts his trek to Nome. The time to be 8
So what does it take to run the Iditarod, and what is the life of a musher? One such musher lives and trains along a section of the original Iditarod Trail that ran through the town of Girdwood, some 20 miles south of Anchorage. Musher Dario Martinez has lived and trained dogs in Alaska for over 20 years. His initial introduction to sled dogs was through the legendary musher, Joe Reddington Sr. In addition to running a dog sled tour company, Dario is a 9-time Iditarod Trail veteran.
I came to Alaska at age 20. I grew up in Germany, and at first running a dog team became an extension of living in the Arctic. Was a good way to travel around. My second winter I spent on the Yukon River running a trapline team, and then shortly after that introduction, met the man who started the Iditarod sled dog race, Joe Reddington Sr. He's really the person who opened me up to the world of sled dogs, and through who I realized that beyond this image that we have, this team and a musher on a sled traveling through the vastness of Alaska, that there's an underlying image that in the end mushing becomes all about, and those are the dogs. I realized that through working with Joe that there was a reason he ran the Iditarod until he was 80 years old. There was a reason why a person could be captured and fascinated and dedicate himself to this so much. There had to be something else than just traveling through the vastness of Alaska.
The breeding conducted by today's mushers essentially represents a blending of two worlds: dogs that pull with dogs that are known to be naturally fast runners, the greyhound, pointers, setters, and border collies. But it's the genetic base of the sled dog that gives the dog their character. When they are harnessed for the first time, they already know 90% of what is needed to be an effective sled dog. Like the sheepdog that herds or like a lab that retrieves, these dogs are bred to pull.
Today, sled dogs' size ranges between 45 to 55 pounds. Male, females all run together. The team size depends on the trail conditions. Generally, a team will be between 10 to 20 dogs. Our runs will last from anything from 30 minutes to 6 hours, with snack breaks in between. The teams are chosen by their running schedule that we've designed, but of course right now in the kennel everybody wants to go. First two turns I'm going to make are going to be to the left. We use voice commands in dog mushing. These are very basic verbal commands. G for right, ha for left. They're more guttural sounds rather than words. But these lead dogs respond to those voice commands and make turns accordingly. And with that, in the end, give us a form of control over which way we're traveling. There are no reins involved here. So the musher really relies on the lead dog's response at that moment. The rest of the dogs just follow the dog in front of them, so the communication link between driver and lead dog becomes extremely important for the overall performance of a team. The average speed in the Iditarod over 1,000 miles is 10 miles an hour. The sprint team may run as fast as 20 to 25 miles per hour for an hour, hour and a half. These dogs will try to run as fast as they can. So what the musher does is run his team on a running and resting schedule. Sled dog's perfect temperature for running is 20 below zero. Today we're just right around freezing, which means these dogs are about 50 degrees away from where they would like to be. In human terms, right now on a day right around 32, it feels like it's like 90 to 100 degrees feels to us. You can see how they're rolling in the snow. If you watch it, how they've got their mouth open, how they're panting. All those are indicators that these dogs are hot. That's why they're rolling in the snow, they're cooling themselves. Just imagine a day of never being cold in your life. The life of a day in the life of a husky. A lot of our training takes place at night because it's cooler. The dogs have excellent night vision. Also, the dogs are nocturnal, coming originally from wolves, and their metabolism is naturally awake. And so it's really their time to be out on the trail. It's a misconception that it takes the command mush to get a dog team to move. The only implement that holds a dog team in place is called a snow hook, which functions more or less as a snow anchor. And a dog team constantly tries to pull out the snow hook, and if they do, they take off, whether I'm on the sled or not. They consider hanging on my job, not theirs. Rule number one in dog mushing for that simple reason is never ever let go of the sled. Where dogs run in the team and who they run with always changes. Most dogs in a team can run in the lead position. When they will run there will often depend on the trail conditions that we find. Tornado is one of my dogs who I will typically use when we are in very windy conditions because she excels at that point. She can deal with snow drifts very confidently. Gus is incredibly fast, and I will use him when the trail is hard and fast. Godwin is very intelligent and very confident when we have fresh snow, and you can virtually write your name in the snow with him in lead. Romeo can be on a very long river run when the scenery never changes and it doesn't affect him at all. The musher needs a deep knowledge of his dog's capacities and have an accurate sense of timing for when a dog is capable to apply its talent.
The average long-distance sled dog requires an astounding 11,000 calories per day when they are running a race. Mushers normally carry one day's ration of dog food in their sleds, along with a cooler full of snacks that they will feed during the run between rests. The 2,000 pounds of meat, fish, and high-quality kibble required for the entire race is distributed along the Iditarod Trail prior to the race start. This complex logistical undertaking is carried out by the Iditarod Air Force, a group of volunteers who fly single-engine airplanes to the 20 remote checkpoints that the mushers will pass through the course of the race.
At 40 sled dogs, I am considered a small kennel, at least by Iditarod standards. I will typically have 1-2 litters a year. I may buy some puppies from other kennels and friends as well. Average size of a litter is about 4 to 6. The breedings that we perform are intentional breedings. This is not a registered breed, but we keep very close records of these dogs' bloodlines, in the end making that the puppy's best start to have a good genetic base. Dogs that we don't intend to breed, we generally neuter and spay right away. As far as how we come up with names for puppies is concerned, everybody uses their own system. I name my puppies according to themes. We'll choose a theme for a litter. Give you an example. One of the last litters were ski resorts, so there was a Jackson, an Aspen, a Tahoe, and a Vale. Cashew, almond, and peanut were really crazy puppies when they grew up, so they became nuts and named themselves. And that helps you later on as you raise these dogs to somewhat recognize their lineage just by commonality in name. Come on, little sweet. But she's 3 months old. Her first time in harness is coming up a month from now. These puppies train real easily. She can't wait. You've seen all the other teams go out. When is it going to be my turn? Yeah, she's a good girl. These puppies you're looking at here have been running in harness for 1 month. The only adults in this team here are our lead dogs, Janet and Romeo, who act as their senior coaches. For the trainer, harness breaking puppies is very exciting. It's a lot of fun. It's all about setting some good habits for something that these young dogs already want to do. Very good. They always want to do more than they should, and that's another thing. You can see that they're not looking back, but then really waiting for that then to happen wouldn't be the right thing to do either. You know, and basically here as my gauge here for feedback and how I'm doing on my job, that is what I'm looking for. Wagging tails, happy dogs. Happy dogs means I like doing what I'm doing. In terms of evaluating a dog's potential, your patience has to supersede your expectations. We all develop at our own pace, and it's important for the musher to recognize that the dog needs the same consideration. Here's an example. The dog in lead is relatively young, at 18 months. His name is Anakin, Star Wars litter. Anakin has run in lead before, but when he did, always with an experienced dog, who would basically be able to run the show. And today, those training wheels are gone, and you can see how the questions are running through his mind here and the way he runs. I know that this dog has in him what it takes to become a good lead dog. He has a very good work ethic. So right now, really, all he needs from me is positive support and my believing in him. I've seen plenty of dogs who never